every era has its sound in every format, right? You turn on the 90s channel of Sirius XM and you hear a sound that defined that era. And every format has had that. And right now there's a sound in pop music, there's a sound in country, there's a sound in hip hop, there's certainly a sound in CCM. And that's what listeners like right now. So the trick is to make sure there is that sound being covered, but you're overlaying what you hope is the uniqueness of that artist on top of that sound.
John's background is amazing just because he's headed up some of the top Christian labels. I mean, he goes back decades. He's got a lot of life lessons about running a business. And then also having the success of like Lauren Daigle is on their label now. And she's, huge. Yeah. He's actually, there'll be one or two things I'll ask him too. Yeah. Since it's open. It's open. Hello.
How are you?
My favorite receptionist. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Hello.
These are my buddies.
What's
this is
going
John's
on?
wife, and she's the
Nice to
front
meet
Nice to meet you.
Hello.
man of the hour.
John. Jeremiah.
Great to meet you, Jeremiah.
Hey, buddy.
So they're still
Good. Good to see you. Man.
They are still meeting in the
Okay,
air. Do you
we've got
want
a bigger kind of conference room right there.
So how many are in here now? Do you want a little tour? Like, can you get? I mean, is there much to?
Do you want to wait till there's actually people here, or do you want to do it empty?
Oh, so later it'll look like there's working going on.
So we have Unspoken and Peabod, and he was here yesterday. He's from Seattle, and he works in a university out there.
Oh yeah, it's funny. His music stumbled across my Facebook like a year ago, and it felt really random.
He's a great guy. And then this is Need to Breathe, obviously Lauren. And this is North Point Church out of Atlanta.
Okay.
Jordan Feliz. Kobe James, who is fairly new. We're still we're releasing things on him, but it's really in a development. We haven't put out like a full album or anything yet on him.
Yeah.
Jason Gray is a veteran. I mean, he's been here from pretty much the beginning. Chris Rensema. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I have.
I think it's interesting that there's not a place like in the Devil Awards this week. This is just fresh on my mind. He is just, his numbers and everything are just incredible. His sales are incredible. Not sales of albums, but like I'm seeing his merch sales on the road.
Really?
He is selling out all these concerts, but it's college age kids. They all stream. So you're not selling CDs.
Yep.
And he's selling an unbelievable amount of merch. It's very interesting. I just think that we're letting something slip through by not picking that up somehow.
Well, we will get out of your way. We're gonna start bringing gear up.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Let's just do it.
You're listening to For the Record, conversations about music, mixing, and the creative industry. Today we are at Centricity Music with John Mays and Steve Ford.
Hello.
Hey. Hello.
And hello, Kurt, also chilling in the background.
Again.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on and welcoming us into your whole operation.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah. So, as we said off camera, you don't like bragging on yourself, and you also don't like bragging on yourself.
Well, I was kidding. I love bragging on myself, actually.
Okay, well,
No,
I mean, if you don't mind, just telling a little bit about who you are, or if you feel more comfortable, John, telling me about who Steve is.
We could tell each other stories. Probably. But I grew up in a small town in West Texas, kind of the music kid at my church, and that led to meeting some guys and starting a band out in Texas. That band opened for another band that was based out of Nashville. And this is back in the late 70s. That's what got me to Nashville, though, and had a season after I got here of touring as a bass player.
Okay.
And that sort of led to a season of just session playing on records here. And during that time, got more into production, indie production, and songwriting. Some of that work that I did made its way to a guy who was running Word Records at that time. So this is like 87 now. And his name is Neil Joseph, still a good friend. And Neil hired me into my first A&R position in 87.
Okay.
So I was there at Word for 8 years, moved to another label called Sparrow for 3, another label called Benson for 2.5. And Benson was happening at the time of a lot of calamity in the music business when file sharing had just started up. And I think Napster came along in 99.
Yeah.
And none of us knew it, but it was the beginning of the end of the music business as we had known it and as we had worked in it all those years. And by 2001 or 2, it was, the effects of it were really starting to show up with labels shutting down and staffs getting laid off all over the place. So it was during that time that I was contacted by a family in Seattle, and that we can go into more of this later if you want to, but that was the birthing of Centricity.
Okay.
Sort of around 2002, 2003. Our official first releases were in 2006. So that's kind of when we use as our official start date, and we're still around.
So you were one of the founders of Centricity Music.
Yeah.
Employee number 1 right there.
Employee number 1.
Yeah.
So your official role now is what?
Head
What
of
kind
A&R.
of? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Fun.
Yeah.
And he's been like the iconic A&R guy since he's been in the business. I mean, he's had so many hits and signed so many great artists. So
The Beatles.
Really?
Elvis.
I was like,
did
for
you
a
have to
split
say
second,
really?
for like a
scares me.
millisecond, I was like, hold on. It took a second for my brain to compute that. There's no way.
Okay.
Just a second, though.
Right.
He looks amazingly good considering what he's been through.
Well, I was 4 when I signed
yeah,
him.
he's
so.
90 is really
Right.
Well, the
Like,
school-
it looked great.
I'll brag on him because the cool thing for me is I used to attend these conferences in Estes Park, music conferences.
Oh, yeah.
This was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'd see John up there, and I had no idea who he was, but I was in Chicago, and like, ooh, he's somebody big from Nashville, and you'd kind of bump into these artists, and wow, I listened to that, and it was cool for us that weren't down here.
Yeah.
And so years later, 18 years ago, I moved down here, and he's handing me a bulletin at our church, and I'm like, that's the guy. And it's just, and that's the thing about
look what's happened to him.
Yeah, I
That's
felt
so
sorry
sad.
for him. No, and that's the amazing thing down here is you're just always running into. It's not that. It's a smaller community than you think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows each other, and
Absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, we've known each other ever since down here. But it's like, yeah, that was that guy from way back then, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Huh.
So
That's dope. And Steve,
Yeah.
Oh, man.
first of all, hello.
Hi.
It was nice to meet you like 5 minutes ago. 10
Yeah,
minutes ago.
yeah, we're like this.
Yeah. But by the end of this,
Oh,
we'll be
a little
like
closer.
at least here.
Yeah.
So what is your role with Centricity?
I'm general manager of Centricity. Actually, John brought me in
Okay.
from another label, so I'm employed. I don't know if I'm 2 or 3,
2, yeah.
but employed 2. So we've been pushing this rock for 16 years together.
Wow.
And it's been a lot of fun and a lot of frustration and normal record label stuff,
Yeah. So starting out, what's the process in starting a record label? Like, there's
Yeah.
probably a whole lot of challenges, and even probably then, like, there's this feeling of, well, that already exists. A lot of people are doing that. What makes you
Yeah.
different?
Yeah.
What was that process?
Yeah, that's a great point, because all labels basically do the same thing. At the bottom line, you're trying to sign artists and get music recorded and get it marketed and distributed. But starting Centricity was the first opportunity I'd ever had to get to ask questions like, well, how could we do that differently? How could we do those things, but do it uniquely in the marketplace in a way that made us different and unique? So those years between like 02 and 06 were a lot of asking those questions and sort of working on a mission statement and some values and things like that, and just getting to ask questions like, why are we doing this? How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it differently? Was such a, well, it was a joy to get to do, but also a super challenge, to come up with answers for that. And I should probably say that this family in Seattle, he's a tech guy. He's, made investments in all kinds of tech, but not music tech at all. And then they have a lady that's worked for them for years, who was kind of their financial person and oversaw all their businesses and investments. And that's who we report to. That's our boss.
Okay.
And she had never been around music at all. So there was a little bit of a dynamic of helping them understand the music business. And especially for Karen, who is really smart in business deals and investments, but that's a whole different thing for the music biz,
right?
And a lot of things that just didn't make sense to her in the way that they're done. But she learned really fast.
Yeah, she's yes.
So, obviously some challenges, but really it was a total gift to get to do something from scratch.
Yeah.
But one thing, having only done really A&R all those years. I was realizing really fast that I had no expertise in marketing and distribution, things that are vitally important, to a label.
Yeah.
And as soon as it was possible, like talking to Karen and the Lumrys, like, could we bring someone in who knows how to do that stuff?
Right.
And this was the guy I knew if I could possibly get, I wanted to. And we had known each other for years, but had never worked together, had actually crisscrossed at different labels. So sorry.
Okay.
We had lunch one day, and I told him about it and asked if he would be crazy enough to come do this. And he finally said yes.
After much convincing. There was a horse head in my bed at one point, but I ended up coming.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories with John is when the family was talking about starting a record label. One of the things he said to him, especially this was 2003, 2004.
Things are bad. Yeah.
I mean, this was when the music industry was the airplane crashing into the earth.
Yeah.
Because of Napster, and then 2005 when iTunes started ramping up and all of that, and instead of $10 you're dealing with 99 cents and all of these things. And he said, basically take your money to Las Vegas so you get a better return on investment. And luckily the family said, no, we're going to do this. And it's been luckily he was very patient. He loved what we did.
Yeah.
You've heard me say it a bunch of times, but for a long time, luckily we were not a large source of income for him, but we were a large source of joy for that family. And he loved what he would be the guy texting us going, hey, did you see that new video? And we'd look at each other and go, there's a new video up? He'd find it before we would if one of our artists.
Yeah.
And he would rejoice when one of our first artists got a #1 inspo song, which is basically like a niche of a niche of a niche type of thing. He rejoiced so much over that.
Yeah.
And we were like, it's an inspo, and he was just so excited that music that we worked on, God blessed and is what impacting lives out there.
Yeah.
One of our favorite stories along that line is, I don't remember the song, but when Steve came on, it was like, this is how you release a single, this is how you have to promote it, this is who it goes to, all that stuff. And so we actually, whatever the single was on whatever artist, we actually was our first shot at really doing a single the right way, and nothing really came of it. I mean, we got 2 or 3 ads, and we were kind of like, well, we need to tell the Lumrys, it's not going to work. And maybe we had ads in Des Moines, I'm making this up, Phoenix and Buffalo, I don't know.
Right.
But he's like, they're playing the song in that town? And we said, well, yeah. And he said, then what can we do? Like, that's exciting. That anybody was playing the song. So that gives you a little bit of perspective on, really, that was a gift to us, for a man like that who's made his living as an investor and an entrepreneur, really, to take such joy in the smallest things, like something to us was a total failure, to him was like a great opportunity. Can we go to Buffalo and play a concert up there? You know?
Yeah.
So he just kind of wouldn't take any pessimism from us about it.
And I think that optimism is really important. I feel like optimism and like being driven, we were kind of talking about this earlier, Kurt, is almost as important or as on par with like talent and skill and ability, because if you're driven to do something and you have the right motivation and like you see the world through a lens of, no, these are good things and we're going to keep going, I think that's going to bring about as much success as if you were just the best person like skillfully in the room.
Well, you just described him.
Yeah.
You did.
Yeah.
So who's your top artist right now that people might be familiar with?
Are we including the Beatles or not? Yeah.
Probably not.
We'll allow the Beatles.
Lauren Daigle, soloist here.
And how much of that is just magic in the air versus what you did?
That's a great question because since Lauren has become popular, we do get a lot of, and it's sincere kindness of, hey, great job on Lauren. You guys have done a great job. Congratulations. And there's kind of something like, if that was all about us doing a great job, we'd do it on everybody, right? Like there's an element of kind of, certainly for these guys, like blocking and tackling, the things that you always do to set up a release and try to let people know about it and tell the story of the artist. But beyond that, there's like a God factor, right, of what he decides he's going to do with it. And certainly in Lauren's case, it's been so far beyond anything that we could have planned or done ourselves. So we kind of have to guard against now, like people coming in and wanting us to do the Lauren thing with them.
Give us that treatment.
And we have those conversations a lot, and just have to be careful to say, hey, that we want to be as honest with you as we can.
Yeah.
We have worked hard on that, but we've worked harder on other things that never got any traction. Those are the hard things.
How did stuff with Lauren start off? Like, how did it?
Yeah.
Because has she only been with you guys? Okay.
Yeah. She was a student at LSU. We could go down another trail here of these retreats that we do. Centricity, in a way, was birthed out of a retreat that we held up in Washington, gathering of independent artists where we get together and we do some writing, but we also do some sessions on just how the industry works, and there's a ministry aspect to it. But we started doing those every year.
Yeah.
I think the first one we did was like in 2003 or something. So we did them every year up until it was too big to manage to do them every year, because as our whole staff goes up for them as well. So we started doing them every other year. But we were doing one in 2012, and I had invited a band called The Assembly, which was a band out of Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And they had a CD, their indie CD, and on the second track of their indie CD, there's a girl voice featured on there. And we needed another girl. We try to, balance out males and females and bands and married couples and all this kind of thing. So I just asked them about who it was, and they, said Lauren. She's a student at LSU, and she sings some on our praise team at church and sings with us sometimes. She had been on Idol, I think, twice at that point.
Oh.
But had never, I think.
Never risen past the top 20.
Yeah.
She never made it into the finals.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What's funny is now they put their arm around her and go, she's one of ours.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. But we didn't even know that for a while. So got in touch with her folks. She was 20 or 21. Talked to her and invited her up, and she was like, sure, I'll come. But she had never really written a song, never performed anywhere other than on this praise team or anything. So it was a little bit of a long shot. Just generally, most of the people we invite have more going on than that. Not always, but generally.
Yeah.
So here's a fun story that we tell all the time with Lauren. You want to tell it? I'm talking a lot. You go ahead. You can take it from
Yeah,
here.
the assembly, what we do on these retreats is they drive up on Friday morning, where we start our thing on Friday night. On Sunday everybody plays a song or two for everybody else, so they end up knowing what they sound like and what they're musically.
Yeah.
And on Friday night, the lead singer of the assembly went to John and said, I don't feel very well. Can I just lay down on the couch upstairs? No problem. Next day was the hospital run for him to go to the hospital the next day, which the nearest hospital is about 2 hours away.
Oh, damn.
And he had his appendix out.
His appendix had ruptured.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Up in the middle of nowhere, Washington.
Yeah.
If I was his parents, I'd be freaking out. And so the band went to Lauren, this background singer that none of us had really known, or we heard her one song, singing backgrounds on a song, and said, "Hey, can you sing leads for us tomorrow at this little, we don't like to call it showcase, but this little." And she sang, and all of us, I think a bunch of us were standing in the back of the room watching. We were going, "Oh my gosh," because she was so good. She's born to be on that stage. I like to say that watching Lauren sing on stage is like watching Michael Jordan play basketball. It's like, this is what that person was created to do.
Yeah.
And she's just, I've never seen an artist from just so at ease standing on that stage. She's great.
What was funny, though, was going to the assembly who were like, well, fine, now we don't have our lead singer, and we're here up here with this label. And like, well, Lauren's up here. Could she just sing some of the praise songs you guys do?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess,
So,
and of course, we never did anything with the assembly, and they finally broke up.
We started a fund for them for therapy.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
But I'm sure they would take the credit for us on Lauren anytime.
Right.
And
we were
rightfully so
Lauren's
to some
first
degree.
band.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a question because I'm kind of taking over.
No,
here
no, no.
Because
Please.
I love John and Steve so much, but I know Steve's going to have to get going. But how do you make the transition? And I know John's got some stories here too. But you're on one side of it, producing an engineer. Were you ever a musician in any stuff?
No.
Okay.
I was just an engineer for 10 years.
But what sort of personality does it take to then end up on this side of this industry? Because we've talked to, and I myself, we're on the other side. Hey, we're musicians, we're composers, we're blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
You guys are on this other side, and you're like the gatekeepers. And how do you stay sane with
You guys are
having
like
to...
corporate of the fast food restaurant.
We call it
where
the
I was
dark side.
The dark side, but
Yeah, I joined the dark side, after
Yeah.
10 years in the recording
But
studio.
you guys
so.
still seem pretty nice and not too jaded.
Right.
What does it take mentally to go, okay, I need to treat people with respect, but I'm also rejecting acts and people daily, or whatever that looks like. What have you learned in that process?
Man, you've got to, I think one of the key things to be on the corporate side, you have to have pretty high emotional intelligence. The ability, John's ability to connect with an artist, to find that special thing in them and draw it out on them is something you can't train. It's not like you can go to school and do an A&R class, and if they do an A&R class, it's useless because so much of it is doing stuff a lot of wrong and hurting a lot of people, and then slowly coming around to, I can do this better. We can do this better. We can do this better. I've, in my early GM days at other labels, I was like, I've hurt people, and I'm really, really regretful of that because I didn't do it well. But it took a while to, at least for me, to move from the creative side, the engineering and producing side, to I started in A&R, so that's probably the most creative section of a record label, and then slowly worked my way into marketing, and now it's like I'm weird. I've done pretty much everything now, but it takes a lot of learning and a lot of mistakes. I love to say I made a lot of mistakes on other people's money. So,
when I was talking earlier about the beginning days and asking ourselves questions about how we could do things differently, that certainly informs how do you say no differently. How do you say no to someone with respect and offer as much dignity as you can? And we spend a lot of time on that. We probably spend more I don't know this. It feels like we spend more time trying to offer respect to someone while saying your music and what we do aren't a fit for each other, you know. And of course, there's way more music that you listen to that you don't sign. You know, it's 95-5 or more than that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that thing a lot, and you're always taking into context who the person is, what their personality is, and we take even, so that's on the beginning. On the ending side, when you're parting ways with someone, we spent a lot of time talking about how do we do that. That's much harder when you have worked with someone now for 5 years or 10 years, whatever, and there's a necessary ending there, you know. And how are we going to handle that in a way that doesn't make the person feel like a failure or rejected in some way? And I don't know that we have it figured out. We may never, because there's a relational dynamic that's different with every person, but that we always try. We keep trying, you know, to make that it's not going to be a good experience, but one that can be meaningful to both of us is important.
Well, I think you guys have a unique position in the music industry as a whole, being in a spot where you guys are trying to lead, you know, in the Christian music industry, but trying to lead with integrity and with care. And like, this is more than just the music industry and how can we make money off of these people, right? Like, I mean, I can tell that that's not the goal for you guys, you know, like there is something far deeper to it. Obviously there's this is our job, how do we make it work? But really it's how do we pastor people, you know? How do we guide people through this? And so that includes the people you welcome in and the people that you're like, this is just not gonna work. And I think, speaking as someone that's spent almost no time in Nashville, I think that's rare. And I think that's special.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tough, you know. It's interesting because I always describe John and I as the yin and yang of Centricity. He's the white side, the creative, the joy, and I'm the numbers and this strategy, you know, that type of stuff. And if you see either side, I have a tendency to be a little too blunt, and he has a tendency to. He's like a loving. He's a you know, that guy. And so
to
together,
not be blunt enough is what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to be blunt. You know, I'm a little. You know, if you want the truth without, he'll tell the truth, but much softer than I will.
Takes me a lot longer.
And so it's very much a trying to figure out to do things right. You know, even coming up with the 3 core values, you know, faith, relationship, and service being our support, excuse me, we worked really hard trying to find those 3 words. And you'll notice relationship is our second core value, in the sense of like, this is who we are. We want to, I love to say, I want to be the Aaron or the Hur in the Moses' lives and hold their arms up. I think he uses build the platform to hold the artists up. You know, neither one of us are called to be the leaders and to be on that stage and to have the spotlight on us. I would actually hate that. But I love to watch the people we've worked with grow into that spot. And when it doesn't work, that's the worst. That's the worst part about it. And I think asking the question, have we done everything we could for this artist? You know, before we have the conversation of do we continue working with them or not? Have we done everything? Have we felt like we can look back on it and go, I'm proud of what we tried. It didn't work, but I'm proud of what we tried. And if we're not, we're gonna try again. You know, we've done that too. You know,
doing it now.
It's probably going to be a continuing thing.
That was one, I think, gift. You need to get
in a minute.
One gift that the Lumrys did give us is working for corporate labels all those years, both of us, and this is completely understandable, but that is a success-driven system, a numbers-driven system, and there's a number that represents a quarterly goal that's got to be met, you know, and that's the way that system runs. And I think we both have respect for it, and
Yeah.
there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
But we're both capitalists, you know.
Yeah.
But where that intersects the life of an artist is messy, really messy. So we had years of, man, I wish we could go again. I wish we could try again, but there's no way that we would get approval to do that. You know, we've already lost too much money on this or whatever. So the Lumleys did give us the gift of like being able to try again. Maybe of the number not being the only measurement for what you do next.
That's a good way to put
And
it.
we were always under that, and we knew we were. I mean, I'm not complaining about it. And,
Right.
and they're really good people that work in those systems. But for at least there to be another option of being able, we might have to make a case for it. You know,
Yeah.
here's why we want to keep trying on
Like
this.
the
But
standards that you measure success by aren't just monetary.
Correct.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
If he would, our owner would sign everything. I hope he never sees this because he's the worst A&R guy I've ever, you know, because he would. He just falls in love with everybody.
Yeah.
And poor John has to go, nope, 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 you know, but he just loves this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because music, especially worship music, is just feeds his soul.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's to come to him and go, we want to try this. It's like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've presented a few things to him that if it was just the numbers on paper, it makes zero sense. It's like, let's try it.
Yeah. Now,
No,
we,
no.
should say this lady I talked about in the beginning, Karen, who is the business person,
my
and our
boss.
CEO
Yeah.
is not that way. So she's a numbers business person. So the tension between sort of the heart and ministry orientation of the Lumleys and the business orientation that she brings, there's messiness in the middle of that, and we kind of live in that every day. So, but I think it's been maddening at times, but it's also been healthy for us to give an account on both ends of that.
Yeah.
You know, and try to do good business. And I think that's one of the reasons we started so lean. Like we started out of my house for 3 or 4 years. There was no buying anything, you know, there was just like, Karen was keeping things very measured and tempered. And then as a little bit would happen, we could start to, I don't know how long we'd been around before we got our first office space, but
Oh, gosh.
I think there were already 5 or 6 of us still meeting at my house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what exactly is the process of
hate to do
or you
this.
have to
I have to-
you have to jump out?
Yeah.
Thanks
Right.
for doing it this
No
long.
problem.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. It was nice meeting you. Yeah. So, like, what's the process of like vetting someone who's looking to? Do they just have? Is there an email address you have on the website where it's like, here you go, or is it more official than that? What is your process of
Like how we get stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say most of the stuff that we listen to does come in through social media at some level or another. That's probably the way A&R has changed the most over the years. In the last 4 or 5 years, where A&R was always just a gut decision, like I believe this can be successful just because I like it, you know, or I think it has the elements of there's possibly a hit song in there somewhere, or what could become a hit song or a hit songwriter.
Yeah.
So until the last 4 or 5 years, that's really all you had to go on was just your own instinct, and then hopefully you developed a track record over time, and that track record could start to speak for itself, you know. But now, well, the summer of 19, I was out visiting the Warner Brothers A&R team, and they have 4 guys. They have an A&R team of 30 people, but 4 of those 30, and part of the reason it's 30 is because they divide up into genres. So they've got a hip hop team and a pop team, and you know.
Yeah.
But 4 of those guys only work on what they call A&R research. So they have programs that are proprietary to their company that just gather social media data and aggregate all those numbers, and they can slice them and dice them in all kinds of ways, follow trends, look at, they're probably following 100 artists every day to see what the graphs are doing and who's, maybe something's blowing up on Spotify or TikTok. And that's what they're using to reach out to people. So one of these guys I was talking to, actually, he was telling me the story of one of the other A&R people had brought in an artist and a song to the A&R meeting. He was super excited about it. And in a team that big, there's a certain amount of selling you're going to have to do to the rest of the team. And he was going through that, had not played the song yet. He's just like setting it up. And this guy is sitting here on his computer and just goes, nah, like, don't even play it. There's no reason. Like, there's nothing about music in what this guy is doing. It's only about numbers. So now, we have a guy that's doing that for us. We don't ever want to get to that point, of course. But
it's like, I don't even want to.
No, we'll never be that.
There's a small dehumanizing element to that if you're not careful.
Absolutely. But at the same time, there's something that tells you some people are engaging with this music out there, and we need to be paying attention to that, even to the degree that you may not hear it, right? I don't know if I get it, but at this point, 300,000 TikTok followers are saying they get it, and they like it. So you're dumb not to pay attention to that, So we have a research guy that is always giving us data in terms of here's what's kind of blowing up out there right now. It's typically a song. Somebody's posted a song, and or it may be a live clip of something or something like that. So there's that piece. There's the biggest piece probably of managers, booking agents, other artists, just people in the industry who I feel like it's our job to build a network with, right? So that when they come across an artist they think is good, they think of us. I want them to think of us. So, and metaphorically, you are building a net that catches those things, but it is a network, of relationships with all music industry types. And so when I have new A&R people that I'm trying to bring up, a big piece of that is just networking, relationships, building trust with people, right? And then there's the not as frequent anymore, but just I was, like I've got my TikTok algorithm pretty well trained to just give me Christian music artists. And so I'm just surfing around. Like our newest signing, a girl named Katie Nicole posted, we have an artist named Jordan Feliz who had a song called The River, and she's doing a version of that in her bedroom on a guitar. And I think because I followed Jordan, the algorithm served it to me. And I reached out the next day because she just sounded great. And a year later ended up being, a new signing for us. So there's that piece of just kind of the shoe leather on the street, just surfing the internet and seeing what's out there. So I think those are the three ways. Like the research part comes to you. And Steven, our guy who's doing that every Wednesday when we have A&R meetings, he's like, here's what's kind of going on out there. And there's probably 50 people he's just following to see what the trends are in their Spotify numbers, their not just their streaming numbers, of course, but their social media numbers. And you have somebody who's really hot on Facebook and nothing's happening on Instagram, and you're trying to figure out what's going on there. But some combination of all that. But I would say the biggest piece of that is people telling us about something.
That's fascinating.
So I'm curious, John, if there's somebody out there listening that's, musician, hey, I want to bring more numbers into my stage show, or I want to get discovered, or I want to, be a recording artist, whatever. What is a factor? I'm thinking of one of my favorite singers who, not the greatest voice, great songwriter, but great storyteller and connector between songs. And you go, man, she just connects. There's just this. So what's one or two attributes that you go, not enough people realize that, okay, so he's a good guitar player, good singer, good songwriter, whatever that is, but that person that stands out has what else that most people don't realize? Oh, I need to be working on that.
Well, it's a great question, and that's why we have this kind of posted on our website, which is basically our A&R philosophy of, there's a lot of things you're looking for, in a person or an artist or a band. But we did an A&R offsite last year and sort of boiled that down to 4 things that were like, these are the essentials. So we could sign someone who doesn't have the bigger list of things, but these 4 things have to exist. So the first one of those would be a work ethic. These aren't necessarily in order of priority, but pretty close. So just the person who expects to sign and let everybody else do the work for them, that person probably will never get any traction because sometimes there's the misunderstanding that, look, I've done all this work as an indie to get myself here. Yeah. Now I just need a team to do that for me. That almost never works because I don't know. There's just something about, hey, the work is about to get harder. You're going to have to ride in a van to El Paso and play for 30 kids in a youth group and pack up your gear and drive back. Well, they haven't been doing a lot of that, or go on a 20-day promo trip and you're not going to always eat gluten-free and you're not going to sleep much. And there's an element that a person needs to say yes to, within reason, whatever we're asking them to do, and treat it like a job. So this is your new job now, and if you were showing up at, if you were worked at a hotel counter, there would be certain things that are expected of you. So we have an expectations document that are basically 5 expectations that we walk through before, like we're interested in the person, but we haven't signed them yet. Yeah. And we want to know what their expectations are of us too, But the work ethic piece is a big part of those expectations. So I could talk more about that, but that's number 1. The second one would be songs, and this probably speaks to, if the music business has a dirty little secret, it's probably this, that finding a great singer or band is just easy now. I think the American Idol and the voice culture has sort of exposed that there's a lot of talent out there, and now they have a means of being out there through social media. And if you want to find a great singer, you can look for about 20 minutes and find somebody. A great song, that's what everybody is looking for and no one can find. So the great song is the connector between the voice or the carrier and the audience, right? Yeah. You could make an argument that the artist doesn't need to be able to be that great if the song is that great. But the song is what lives on. It's what, how many people know the song, but they have no idea who the artist is. I mean, that happens all the time. Yep. So I would say most of our developmental work is about songs. And for somebody to show up in this town with a couple of great songs in their pocket, they don't have to worry about getting heard. Like, labels will find them and come to them. So that's number 2. I think number 3 would be, the word is uniqueness, but there's a qualification to that. So obviously you don't want to just sign something that sounds like everything else out there, even if it's good. Yeah. But at the same time, every era has its sound in every format, right? You turn on the 90s channel of Sirius XM and you hear a sound that defined that era. And every format has had that. And right now there's a sound in pop music, there's a sound in country, there's a sound in hip hop, there's certainly a sound in CCM. And that's what listeners like right now. So the trick is to make sure there is that sound being covered, but you're overlaying what you hope is the uniqueness of that artist on top of that sound. So when people are like, it just sounds all that, you hear this about country music all the time, and it all sounds the same. Yes, it does. Most all hip hop sounds the same. Most all CCM sounds the same. And it's because people are chasing the sound of that era. I don't know if that makes any sense or not.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So we're looking for someone that I think can sound like that right now, but also be unique inside of it. And sometimes that's just a lot of experimenting, right? And a lot of trying to find the song, the sound, the style that gets in the stream of what's going on right now, but also says, this doesn't sound like everything else that's in the stream.
Yeah.
And that can take a couple of years of experimentation, or what we would call development, you know. So there's that. And then, you know, the fourth would just be the fit. Centricity has a culture, it has a feel, it has a team that we've built around that culture. And early on, one of the things I felt like was important in sort of our foundation is who the person is probably more important than what they do. Both are important, but this is probably more important. There's a kind of person, or if it's a band, a kind of people that fits us. So if that's true, then we need to be aware that we could find someone who's really great and that someone is going to sign, but they don't fit here, and we need to be okay with that. And so as we've come across that in the last, I don't know, it's probably happened 4 or 5 times where the person got signed and actually went on to do well. We had to sort of talk ourselves off that ledge, like, right, like we made this decision for a reason, and that reason is part of our DNA, that who the person is more important than what they do. And we're going to be happy with that, right? And we're going to miss some things because of that. So that fourth one is not something you can make any determination on. The other 3 kind of are. Like, you can pretty early on get a feel for somebody's work ethic, even while they're still indie, you know. Songs are easy to determine. Is the person, they have any gifting for writing? The uniqueness thing sometimes takes some figuring out, but sometimes it just shows up immediately. But the fit, that's going to take some time. And that's one of the reasons we do this retreat. The retreat is it's 5 days. It's up in the middle of nowhere, kind of the foothills of the Cascades, a beautiful place, but there's no real place to go. We're going to hang out together for a week. We're going to eat all our meals together.
Are you still do that?
Yes. The last one we did, though, was in 18. Because 20 was the next one, and we, of course, didn't do it. We tried to do it again this year and could not get everybody on the same page with the COVID stuff. So we're hoping, again, to do it next year. But it's a big part of what we do, and we've really missed not having them because of this reason. Like, we have invited artists that, we're inviting people that are on our radar already at some level. But we have invited people that at the end of the retreat, we were like, we would never work with that person. And we're so glad they were here. Because how long would that have taken us to find out by going to lunch? They live in Dallas and we're here, and they either got to come here or us go out there. That's going to take a couple of years to get a sense. There's a piece of, it's almost like dating, right? Like when you first meet each other, everybody's got their best face on, and you're trying your best to present your best self. And by self as an organization, I mean your best organizational self and their best artist self. You got to get past that, you know. And with different people, that takes different amount of times. But that's a long-winded answer to your question. But those are sort of the 4 things that are the most important to us.
And that retreat, I mean, maybe that's something that happens in other places and wasn't like your unique idea, but I've never heard of that before.
No, I don't think. There are writing retreats, like just pure songwriting retreats.
I've been on one of those before.
But honestly, we did not use the retreat as an A&R tool for quite a while. Like, we finally got smarter about who we were inviting. And but at first, honestly, it was from the Lumries just sort of a way to bless some independent artists and encourage them, blow some wind in their sails and send them on their way. And that's awesome to get to do. But while we're doing that, could we be a little more strategic about who we're inviting? At least invite some people we're interested in and want to get to know better.
How big were those retreats?
It's about
typically?
20 artists total. So
Okay.
that's some combination of bands, solo, sometimes duets or vocal groups, you know.
Right.
But about a total of 20 people, and then our whole staff goes up. So there's 23 of us now. So then we bring up session leaders and some professional songwriters. So there's about 50 of us by the time
That's cool.
everybody gets up there. And we have always tried to sort of model the head, hands, and heart thing. Like, so we want people to leave with a better understanding of just how the industry works. What does a label do? What does a manager do?
Yeah.
What does a booking agent do? And we bring up people to lead sessions on those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And then there is a songwriting component. We bring writers up, and most of the afternoons are just co-writing with professional writers. But that's as much about learning how to be a better writer than, you know, which usually happens just by writing with people better than you.
Right.
Excuse me. And we've had people like Lauren that had never written a song in their life, and then we've had people that the professional writers have come out of the room and gone, that guy's a better songwriter than me, you know. So that happens too, and that's neat. And then there's more of a pastoral or spiritual growth component to it, where you know, it's a very messy proposition to try to combine business and ministry and art. I don't think those things go together very well.
Yeah.
Anybody that's ever worked in a church and kind of, you know, seen how the sausage gets made will go, ugh. And certainly that's true for any sort of ministry that is also a business. So I think we're all those things, and we live in the tension of trying to hold them together.
Yeah.
And every artist is a microcosm of that, because they're kind of trying to do the same thing. I mean, they're trying to make a living at this and pay their car payment, you know, by either writing songs or playing gigs or something that brings in some money. The heart or ministry aspect of it is important and has some eternal value to it. I mean, that's a big deal. You know?
I was actually going to ask, what has been, in the course of all of this existing, one of the hardest things about carrying the weight of, and you're probably not like the top person technically if you were to draw it out, but like this was your child, right?
Yeah,
your passion, and like has there been a weight associated with that as other people jump on? Like, I've felt that with just, you know, my small company that has existed for a year, and Ben is the only person that's like really working with me. But as I think about who I'm going to hire and how things are going to grow, there's like a weight that comes to that. Yeah. Is that something that you felt as well?
Oh, so much. Yeah. The weight of being sort of the keeper of the values and the mission and who we said we were in the beginning. And also the weight of knowing when to let go of that stuff, right? I don't know if you experienced that, but maybe that was an important value for us when we were a team of 3 and had 1 artist. Yeah. But now we have 15 artists and a staff of 22. That value doesn't work so much anymore. I think the mission is everlasting. Yeah. Like, that's what we're going to be about. That's the reason we show up to work every day, and it always will be, as long as there's a centricity. Other aspects I have had to learn to shift around with. So there's never going to be the same dynamic with 5 people as there are with 25. Yeah. And people are going to come. I mean, we've had people work here that weren't believers when we started. Out of this incredible sort of ministry objective. Yeah. That's a weird thing. But I also have to learn to let go of some of the control of that. Like, that could be an awesome thing, not to have a believer. They see the world with different eyes than we do, right? So maybe the bigger burden has been to know what to let go of and what to sort of be stubborn about, you know, and continue to drive home even with new people. Like, this is why we exist. Yeah. These are who the Lumleys are. You've never even met the Lumleys. You don't know any of these stories, right? But I feel the responsibility to be the dot connector to, I'll tell you a quick story that I always tell new staff members. Yeah. So the very first retreat we ever had, there was a guy named Michael Fordnall, who's a singer-songwriter out in Dallas. And maybe we were into the second or third day, and I've never put on a retreat. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, but we're hacking our way through it. And he comes up and said, hey, John, where do you know where the janitor guy is? They said to let him know when we're out of water in our cabin. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I know there's no janitor guy up there, but I'm like, describe who you're talking about. And he starts describing Mr. Lumry. Because he was the one going around saying, what can I get you? Do you need anything? Cleaning up the water bottles, straightening things up, serving these artists that had shown up there who had no idea. I'm like, Michael, that guy you're describing, he owns this place. And that was sort of a neat revelation to be able to go, if we can keep that as an organization, as we grow and get bigger, that's part of our DNA. We never want to, that's worth fighting for. Yeah. Some of these other things aren't worth fighting for, and I need to figure out how to let go of them. And obviously, if it wasn't clear when Steve was here, I did bring him on. Now he's my boss. You know, there was a very right and organized way of organizing things that needed to keep me focused on A&R, which is my strength if I have one. And he's much better at business and organizational stuff. And it was a right and good thing, but I had to let go of a lot of stuff, right, to do that. But of course, fortunately, Steve is number two. He goes way back to those other times too. So I think that's the way I would answer that question.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Kurt, final call. Any questions?
Oh, this has been great. I'm glad I wrangled you into this.
Yeah, thank you.
Who's watching?
Who's watching? So right now the audience is smaller. Okay. So this has been, for the record, started July of this year. Yeah. And we shot 8 episodes in the studio that I run back in Island Lake.
Awesome.
Many of which were just friends that I had that were helping me get it on its feet. Yeah. A couple other people were organic, like local artists and stuff that I brought in. And as I connected with Kurt and we kind of cast vision for what it could look like to grow it, this idea for season 2 coming out to Nashville has been that. So it's still in its early stages.
Sure, not so much the size, but do you have any idea of who the people are that are watching?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a combination of friends that have seen the vision for what I'm doing for a while and have been trying to support it. Yeah. And the network of artists that I've started to try to create, either by using this show as a means to do it, or that I've produced music for and then have come into the studio. It's been kind of a combination of those two. Okay. So there's some independent artists and stuff. Most of the people I've worked with so far have been independent artists, singer-songwriter types, than it has been full bands. So
makes sense.
Got some of those as well.
Well, I'll leave us then with a couple of borrowed tidbits. How's that?
Please, yeah.
A guy who I had the grace from God to be mentored by for just a short time before he passed away, a guy named Bob McKenzie. But he left me with a couple of things that I still preach to this day. But one of them, which I think has maybe even more application now than when he told me years ago. Yeah. But he had this theory that you live along a line of preparation until it intersects a line of opportunity. So for any aspiring artist, writer, engineer, chef, it's true for anybody, that you are doing what you can do, even though you're not even sure where that's going, right? There's sort of a blindness to, I have these gifts stirring in me. Let's say you are an independent artist. I'm not sure what this is for, where it's going, but I want to do what I can do to get better at it as on my own. So, you read books, you build relationships, you go to coffee with people, you write songs, you do the work, and that's all living on the line of preparation that is going to intersect a line that you have nothing to do with. That's just sort of God's job, right? When that line intersects. And you want to be as prepared for that as you can be. But we use the metaphor around here a lot of our job is to put the best seed in the ground that we can. And we want to work hard to do that and sort of be faithful scatterers of this seed.
Yeah.
But we cannot bring the fruit up, right? We can't make something come out of the ground. We can't make a Lauren Daigle happen after that seed is in the ground. We just, you water and you cultivate, but if fruit comes up, that's the line that got intersected, right? You just never know when you're going to get a call to sit down with the guy who runs Word Records and literally said to me, I'm going to have to hire an A&R guy, and I think you'd be good at it.
Yeah.
This was pre-Google. I did not know what A&R meant, but I didn't want to be so uncool as to ask him what it meant. So I had to leave that breakfast and go call some people and ask what A&R meant. This thing that this guy thought I would be good at. I didn't even know what it was, but I faked my way through the rest of the conversation, you know. So that was my line of opportunity. And of course there were some before and since, but one that was life-changing. So let me then build on that to say there's an awesome metaphor in Matthew for those who are interested in anything in the Bible that is called the parable of the talents. Christians are familiar with it, but where there's a master who doles out talents, which was probably money or seed or something like that. I think we can use it as literal talent in our day, you know. 3 different people. He gave them different amounts of talent, left, and then he was going to come back for them to give an account. The first guy, which I can so relate to, he comes back to the master and said, I know you're a peculiar master, but I didn't want anything to happen with what you gave me, so I buried it. And look, I'm giving it back to you just like you gave it to me. In other words, I took care of it. Look, nothing happened to this. And it's not good news for that guy. The other 2, and I love that one was given less and one was given more. They both basically went to work with what they were given. And made some more with what they were given and brought that back. And the master was pleased, even with the one that brought back less because he was given less. There seemed to be no differentiation there. They both got the same response. Well done. You did what I was asking you to do. You took what I gave you and you made more with it. So maybe living on that line of preparation is a daily asking of yourself, even if you're not a Christian, what am I doing today with what I was given? How can I be a good steward over what I've been given and make it better than it was last week? And I promise if you put some thought to that, you'll come up with 40 things you can do, right? Some of them may seem really impossible, but if you make a list of, there's 15 unfinished songs in my voice memo. I'm going to finish 2 of those this week. That's living on the line of preparation. It's becoming a more disciplined person who wants to get out the work. And I guarantee you, Steve Jobs had this mantra that true artists ship. In other words, he looked at his engineers as artists, and that's probably good. They probably were. But this thing you're designing, it doesn't matter if somebody can't use it, if it doesn't go out to someone. To never finish or complete or show some of the work that you've done. What's it for? Is it for your own self-gratification? No, there's a lot of work to do in living on that line of preparation and just finishing some of the work you've started. Because that's where the courage comes in, right?
That's cool.
When you finish something, you've got to come to terms with your own level of gifting. And that's very hard for creatives to do. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
Man, thank you so much. That's good advice. Oh, and thank you for, honestly, just taking time out of your day to come and talk.
It was a joy to do, and I would do anything for this guy.
Dude, he's pretty great.
Okay, not anything.
I know you better than that, John.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys next time.
Sounds good.
This is our first outside shoot.
Let's hope it stays quiet.
Yeah, let's hope. I mean,